Alright, ladies and gentlemen, a bit of a Honkai video today, though. A bit of a character analysis. Now, I don't do these for Honkai often because finding this information is not really easily accessible because you need the beta. There's nothing like Amber or Honey Impact like there is for Genshin, so getting this information for Honkai, you kind of need access to the betas to accumulate this. But I thought I'd take it upon myself to get some information from other content creators, and for this video, I pretty much everything that I talk about with the Herrscher of Truth, which is the character we're going to analyze, I guess just kind of go over and talk about the character and essentially clarify how they're going to play and their specific damage values and how systems works from my own interpretation of the information that I can gather from Marissa Honkai's video. Now, this is to do with, I think, the third version beta. So I don't know if that's going to be the final product, but it's close enough to the final product that, you know, most things are going to be the same. And that's pretty much where all my information stems from, is Marissa Honkai. So I'm going to go through this the same motions that I do with my Genshin character analysis is just kind of go through it sequentially and interpret things as I go through and explain how things can link to each other and essentially how a character will play. But again, I'm not a Honkai professional, so bear that in mind. So let's get into it. Herrscher of Truth. We've finished the third act, so we know this character now. Herrscher of Truth is here. So let's start off with the passive. All elemental damage plus 35%. And for every non-Bronya character in the team during armed mode, all enemies take 6, 8, or 10% bonus ice damage from the Herrscher of Truth. So, you know, ideally, don't play Herrscher of Truth with other Bronya characters. That's how to get the most value out of this character being the lead character. Now onto her passives. She has one massive passive here, and then a bunch of other small passives. So the first passive, Herrscher of Truth will fight with Bunny, which is a summoned unit, and it will deal damage. So she just has an on-field companion during her Herrscher of Truth, or I think it's her Truth form. Is that? Yeah, her Truth mode, I guess it's called. And then in Truth mode, certain Herrscher of Truth actions will unlock mecha weapons in the order of missiles, lasers, and then hover guns. And these are pretty much only unlockable during Herrscher of Truth mode or Truth mode, and then you kind of use them in armed mode, or they do something for armed mode. But going on to what they do, missiles, it essentially enhances Bunny, and then missiles give Bunny more missile damage. The damage is right there. Lasers makes it so Bunny shoots a massive laser, and then the hover gun enhances that laser so it deals more damage. It's quite straightforward, and you'll unlock the mecha upgrades or the mecha weapons with certain other things that we'll get into a bit later on. Armed weapon or armed mode lasts for 20 seconds. During this, you have high interruption to resistant, high movement speed, and 80% total damage reduction. So during her burst mode, which that's what armed mode essentially is, you're immortal. I don't really know, that may be a bit overkill there in my honest opinion, but yeah, you're essentially immortal. And then based on mecha weapon upgrades, you get different buffs, and then also mecha energy equals max 100 points. The mecha energy we'll get into once we actually get to her combos and her charge attacks and whatnot, so that's that. Truth mode and armed mode are both considered Herrscher forms. This thing right here is actually pretty cracked in my opinion. Both modes, both her spear mode and her massive like mech form is considered a Herrscher form, meaning that 90% of Herrscher ice stigmas are usable on her, which is pretty good in my opinion, and it's going to make her a lot more consistent throughout her whole playstyle. And then she has a bunch of weapon actives, 14% or 14-second cooldown on this one. You just deal a bunch of damage whilst in truth form. And then armed mode, I should really start using mode instead of form, but armed mode, she fires a laser beam in a straight line dealing damage. And then here's another thing, if you have the laser mecha weapon unlocked, which is the second mecha weapon, that means you have to unlock 2 mecha weapons before getting into armed mode. But if you have it unlocked, you fire an initial 2 lasers, each dealing 20% of ice damage. So that's one of the reasons to always get 3 mecha weapons before going into armed mode. And the last part about this first passive is when exiting the field in armed mode or when the duration ends, you launch the thing and it deals ice damage, respawning Bunny and resetting the weapon unlock system or the mecha weapon unlock system. Essentially, Vilvi's end of ultimate, you shoot it out and it explodes, dealing damage. The end. Next passive is unlocked at S2. I will always outline when something is unlocked at S2 and when something is just baseline for a character. So this one is unlocked at S2 after casting weapon active, self-ice damage plus 30% for 18 seconds, and refreshable in truth, that is refreshable, and in truth mode plus 8 SP. I also just realized that I forgot to mention that Bronya, Herrscher of Truth, is a cannon user imaginary ice character. That's her main kind of thing. She's also a ice main DPS, lightning and fire support. So she kind of covers the whole fucking spectrum of everything, so probably the most versatile character in the game. Ice main DPS, lightning and fire support, imaginary. I forgot to mention that at the start, my apologies. We move on though. Angel Refractoration Engine. Each time you unlock a mecha weapon, Herrscher of Truth gains 4 SP. Every 1, 2, 3 types of mecha weapons unlocked, armored mode gains total damage up to these values right here in S0, so baseline essentially. And then once you get to S1, those values get boosted up by a fair chunk. Now, looking at these values, if you're not getting 3 types of mecha weapons, so going through laser, hover, or missile, laser, hover, if you're not getting all 3 of those, you're losing out on a fair chunk of damage. If you just get 1 unlocked, you're getting 7.5 versus 3 unlocked, which is 27.5. So you're really missing out on a lot of damage then. Now let me move that here really quickly. My apologies on that one. That's very good. Anyway, unexplained creations. When Bunny or Bunny Transform Mech is on field, Herrscher of Truth gains 0.5 SP per second, and all Valks gain a buff, all elemental damage. Essentially, when you're in Truth form, Herrscher of Truth or Truth mode is when this is going to be most prominent. That's when Bunny is on the field. So this is just kind of a supporting thing about it. You passively gain SP for Herrscher of Truth. It's just a supporting one. Very nice. Now, onto evasion skill. Oh, I guess I forgot to read this part. When you exit the field in arm mode, all team members gain 4, 10, or 18 SP, depending on how many mecha weapons you have. That's actually quite important. Make sure to always have 3 mecha weapons, ideally. We haven't gotten into how to unlock them, because that's mentioned a bit later, but always make sure to have 3 mecha weapons before you go into armed mode. Anyway, evasion skill. Evasion skill in truth mode can connect to the 4th basic attack sequence. Quite handy. And Truth mode, when evasion skill is activated, or when evasion is activated, press attack to cast Vector Analyze, dealing 500%. On hit, unlock 1 weapon type. That's how a first method to unlock a weapon type. Evasion, attack, cast Vector Analyze to unlock 1 weapon type, which is going to be missiles. This may or may not be your first way to undo it. There's many methods to do this. You also gain a 3-second time fracture and gain higher interruption to resistance for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 12 seconds. Armored mode. If missile weapon is unlocked, which is the first one, non-ultimate evasion launches 8 missiles, dealing damage. And then evasion skill is recover 20 mecha energy and fire 8 missiles. If missile weapon is unlocked, fire 28 instead. So just by unlocking the first mecha weapon, armed mode already is dealing a lot more stuff. So that's just one of the pros of getting all 3 mecha weapons before you go into arm mode. Iron Flow. In armed mode, missile deal additional 8% in S0, and then 15% in SS2 damage, but mainly we're just going to stick with the 8% for now, attack of ice damage, and then missile total damage plus 30% in S0, it's 40% in double S2. Point Singularity, in armed mode, non-ultimated evasion, I think that should be ultimate, but non-ultimate evasion also activates evasion skill. Evasion skill restores 400 SP to the entire team. Quite cool, but it's in armored mode, so it's kind of like, you're going to be dodging just to restore HP, and it's really up to you if you want to do that. It's going to trigger a few other effects, I guess, obviously, like the stuff up here. It's going to trigger this, obviously, but, you got to restore HP to the team. 400 is not a lot, but it is something. Legacy of Sacrifice. For every Fire Valkyrie in the team, Herrscher of Truth gains initial SP plus 20, max 2 stacks. So you have to be running 2 Fire Valks in the team to actually get this. No real reason to run 2 Fire Valks, really. Obviously, if you're maybe supporting a Fire team, then there would be a reason. But if Herrscher Bronja is going to be your main DPS, obviously you're running Ice characters, so redundant comment by me, my apologies. And obviously triggers once every 10 minutes in open worlds. Going into her basic attack tree, you can look at the values here, but it's nothing too crazy. The one thing to take consideration is on the 4th attack sequence, she does a lot of damage, Buddy does a lot of damage, and then on hit, you unlock 1 mecha weapon. That's going to be rather important. That's going to be probably one of your primary methods. I was going to say weapons. Methods to unlock a mecha weapon. So you're probably going to do a normal attack chain, and then into an evasion, or probably an evasion into attack chain, 4th sequence, and that whole thing unlocks you 2 mecha weapons immediately, because if we go back to this, when evasion is activated, press attack to cast Vector Analyze, and then evasion skill in truth mode connects to the 4th attack sequence, and then the 4th attack sequence is what gets you 1 mecha weapon, so you can very easily get 2 mecha weapons right there, just in one essential frame, per se. So that's 2 right there, and that's very good. Armored mode restores mecha energy and 1.6 SP with that 3rd attack sequence, but again, we haven't gotten to mecha energy and what it does. We'll get there in just a moment. And then after unlocking laser mecha weapon, which is the second one, second sequence fires 2 additional laser attacks, 3rd sequence fires 4 additional laser attacks, and every laser deals a bunch of damage, which is quite good. This is quite straightforward, to be quite frank with you so far. QTE, trigger time slow, freeze, or when a team member casts a weapon active. So she's got quite a lenient method of triggering her QTE, time slow, freeze, or a weapon active. Really good. And guess what? That unlocks the 3rd mecha weapon. So this is primarily if you're using her as a main DPS, you're gonna switch into her with a QTE, then you're gonna evade into her 4th attack sequence, which is gonna trigger Vector Analyze, and then you're also gonna go into her 4th attack sequence, which is gonna unlock another mecha weapon. You're gonna have 3 mecha weapons, and you're gonna go into her normal attack chain after you get into arm mode. You're gonna do a bunch of stuff there. I haven't played the character, so I don't know the exact flow, but that is really good. That's probably gonna be the gameplay loop: is QTE, evasion into Vector Analyze, and then 4th attack chain to get the last mecha weapon, then ultimate, and then boom, Fanny's your uncle. I don't know what that saying is. Anne's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt or whatever. Regardless, there is another method with the ultimate weapon skill, or whatever it's called, the weapon skill. I think that also gives you one, but we'll get to that in a second, I guess. Eclipse Collapse. This is unlocked at SSS, so probably one of her high value ones, but it doesn't feel high value. In armed mode, using weapon skill activates a 3-second time fracture. It's quite straightforward. Path to Silverwing. When Bunny is on the field, it will deal coordinated attacks with Valkyries. So essentially, when you're in truth mode, or when you're just not as Herrscher of Truth, Bunny's on the field, and it will deal coordinated attacks with the other Valkyries that are on the field, kind of a bit more of a supporting element to the character. Anyway, onto the ultimate: Narrative of Infinite Truth. Transform in truth mode. Tap ultimate to transform. You go into armored mode. On cast, you transform, deal 800% of attack damage to nearby enemies, and trigger a 2-second time fracture, which is quite good. This counts as a Herrscher of Truth combo attack, which I believe is the combo attack that you want to be doing for some things. And then if this hits enemies, you gain 20 SP, which is also really good. Now, one thing to note about this is that you can only full transform once per battle, and that means that this stuff can only is applied to the full transformation. Recast will be fast transformations that deal less damage of ice damage, and then yeah, it doesn't count. Apparently, this is just from what I read in Marissa's video. That's that. Full Power Blast costs 125 SP with a cooldown of 30 seconds. During armed mode, press ultimate for ultimate attack, and you deal a bunch of damage to all enemies. Pause the timer, entering armed mode refreshes ultimate cooldown. It's essentially a massive blast of damage, quite straightforward. Echo of the World. In armed mode, Herrscher of Truth gains 15% elemental breach at S0, and then at SS, you gain 18%, so only 3% bonus. Not super duper great, but still 3% is something. This whole ability is unlocked at SSS. When full transformation attack hit an enemy, Herrscher of Truth gains an additional 40 SP. It's really if you want to use that ultimate very, very fast, but again, it's unlocked at SSS just to be able to use her ultimate massive blast quicker, and it's really up to you if you want to do that. Devouring Tyrant's Resistance. After Herrscher of Truth uses an ultimate, fire plus lightning Valk elemental breach state for 16 seconds, their attack gains 14% at S0 elemental breach, and at SS it's 17%. And this is one of the parts that makes her a fire lightning Valk support, and it's extrapolated a lot in her stigmas and a few other things down the line. So yeah, 14% at S0, which is quite good. Only extra 3% at SS, so you know, it's pretty good. Anyway, combo attack. This is where the mecha energy comes into play. So in truth mode, tap attack during 4th sequence, or evasion skill Vector Analyze, deal a lot of damage. Bunny Chain, deal ice damage as well, and then pull nearby enemies, deal damage. Hitting an enemy unlocks 1 mecha enemy. So you also got a combo attack that you can do, which is tapping it during the 4th attack sequence, or an evasion skill to do Vector Analyze. It's a lot of comboing into this Vector Analyze. There's a lot of skipping the first 3 attack sequences to get to the 4th one. I'm not even sure at this point why the first 3 are there at this point, but it is what it is. A lot of skipping and a lot of mecha weapon building, so there's a lot of avenues to get mecha weapons, so going into armed mode without 3 mecha weapons is almost unacceptable. And then in armed mode, hold attack to deplete mecha energy, so that's exactly where the mecha energy goes. In armed mode, you hold attack to deplete it, dealing a lot of ice damage, triggering a 2-second time fracture, lock on enemies max 10, and then you fire 2 missiles plus 1 laser at each enemy that you have marked, and you can only mark a max of 10. Each missile deals 100% of attack of ice damage, and then each laser is 40%. A cool thing to note here, though, if less than 5 enemies are marked, double lock onto them. So if you mark 4 or 5 enemies, then each one will take essentially 2 of these. So each enemy will take 4 missiles and 2 lasers, which is actually quite handy for a lot of funneling into single target damage. But again, I don't know if I don't know if it times 10s it on one enemy. I don't believe it does. And then at the end of this combo, you deal 600% of attack as ice damage, which is quite handy dandy. Next, when Arm Mode combo attack is casted, a Gain in the Name of Truth buff. Herrscher of Truth gains ice damage plus 30% for 18 seconds. Refreshable. You just gain a massive damage bonus. Quite nice. And then lastly, if Hover Gun is unlocked, Armed Mode combo attack summons 4 Hover Guns, which is a summoned unit. Every attack from Hover Guns deals some damage. Quite nice, actually. Her ultimate is quite well-rounded and probably is going to feel, or rather, sorry, her combo attack, my apologies. It's quite well-rounded. A lot of stuff to do in the Truth mode, a lot of stuff to manage with Vector Analyze and the weapons and the mecha guns. And then in the ultimate, you have the mecha energy and this in the Name of Truth buff to manage, which is quite nice. Inscription of the Forsaken Land. When Herrscher of Truth leaves the field, consume the In the Name of Truth buff to buff the team. This is another one of those lightning and fire boosting abilities. Which is to buff the team. The basic attack plus combo and charge attacks gain fire and lightning damage plus 42.5% in S0, and then 55% in SS1, which is, quite a big leap, but still 42.5 in S0 is quite nice for fire and lightning damage for pretty much all forms of attack, basic attacks, combo, and charge attack, which is really good. All enemies on the field receive plus 25% in S0 or 30% in SS1 bonus fire and lightning damage, lasts 18 seconds, and is refreshable. To be quite frank, this whole fucking ability right here seems kind of busted. That's a lot of damage bonus just for one kind of ability, or sorry, one kind of passive. But I guess it is when you have the In the Name of Truth buff, which you can only get from this. So it depends on how you use her, but regardless, it's still very, very nice. Lost Sight of the Snowfield. When Armed Mode combo attack hits a Nihilist Seed, if it's less than 20%, then insta-kill it. Because she's imaginary, you can insta-kill a Nihilist Seed, but it has to be your Armed Mode combo attack specifically. So if it's good or bad is up for debate. If she's a main DPS, then it's going to be really good because you're going to be going through your combo attacks quite frequently, I believe. But if you're using her as like a support, probably not. Next one, Letter at the End of the Sea. Each time you consume Mecha Energy in Armed Mode, Ultimate deal additional 30% damage in S0 and 50% additional damage in S2 attack of ice damage. So you probably want to consume as much mecha energy as humanly possible before using her ultimate. You want to use her ultimate probably last second, kind of like a Vilv potentially. Use her ultimate last second to kind of maybe get the bomb out, but then again, hers has like an auto end, and also at the same time, Herrscher of Truth has an auto end. So maybe you just don't end your ultimate at your free will, unless the damage is going to boost you to the kill of the enemy before auto-attacking would. So it's really up to that. And that's pretty much the character baseline. That's pretty much all of the abilities outlined. The character is quite fucking juiced out of their mind. A lot of abilities are actually cracked for supporting, but also a lot of selfish DPSing. So it's quite good. Now we're going to go into the weapon, the Domain of Truth. Attack is 436, and CRT, the most useless stat in the game, or sorry, my bad, useful stat, because everyone loves it, is 15. Now, passive 1, rapid fire weapon that deals continuous damage to targets along a straight line, and continuous fire will overheat the weapon. It's quite cool. And then the closer the enemy is, the more damage they take, to a maximum of 10 meters, or sorry, to a minimum of 10 meters to get max damage, which is quite nice. The continuous beam is just you hold the button down and it shoots. It's kind of similar to holding down the button for the new Herrscher of Reason gun in her kind of bike form. You just kind of pew, 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 but there is an overheat mechanic apparently to this weapon, which I haven't seen in action, but just trust that there may or may not be an overheat mechanic that you have to manage. Now, for each Valkyrie in the team with a specific elemental tag, gain specific bonuses. So for each Ice Valkyrie, self-total damage plus 20%, meaning if you want to run her as a main DPS, 2 Ice Valkyries accompanied with Herrscher of Truth is going to be the best way to go, and you'll get total of 40% self-damage. For each fire Valkyrie, enemies take 10% bonus fire damage. Obviously, she's going to be a fire support in your team, potentially, so, you're going to be accompanied with a fire main DPS and another fire support. That's 20% bonus fire damage. And then the lightning one, when weapon active is used, team gains 3 SP. This one seems like, honestly, like a Genshin Impact lightning or electro kind of resonance. Seems kind of fucking dog shit, but SP is slightly more useful, so who knows, maybe a bit useful. The above ones can only stack once, though. And now let me clarify something here. They can only stack once unless you're the Herrscher of Truth, because the Herrscher of Truth has an equip bonus, can be stacked up to 3 times. Multiple same copies mean nothing. So if you're equipping this on like a Haxor bunny, won't do anything. But if you're equipping it on a Herrscher of Truth, it will be very, very good. Next one, active. SP cost is 0 and the cooldown is 18 seconds. Fire penetrating laser that deals a lot of damage. Trigger a large AoE explosion that deals a lot of damage. And then also a Herrscher of Truth equip bonus. In Truth form, casting weapon skill activates evasion skill. Sorry, activating weapon skill activates evasion skill. And then in armed mode, weapon skill requires, I believe. I don't know, this probably a me typo here. Let's just go with requires 50 mecha energy plus, maybe restores. Maybe it's restores. Actually, no, that's probably it. Restores. Restores 50 mecha energy, plus when basic attack hits an enemy, gain 5 mecha energy. So it's quite good. The whole duration of your thing, your armed mode, is 20 seconds, so you're only going to get really 1 active weapon active per armed mode. But if you're really, really lucky, you probably get 2 out, and thus you'll be able to get a lot of cycling of the mecha energy, but you're going to be basing attacking a lot and get a lot of these combos out because you need 100 mecha energy per combo. I'm assuming it's going to be 100. But regardless, moving on. Passive 2, team all elemental damage plus 10% not stackable. After using ultimate, increase it to 15%, lasts for 18 seconds, so quite handy. It's a bit more of a supporting one, this over here. And then after using weapon active, self-damage plus 30% for 18 seconds, this is refreshable. So a bit of supporting and a bit of selfish DPSing on the last passive. It's kind of a juiced out a weapon, to be quite frank with you. A lot of self-damage, a lot of supporting, a lot of fun, a lot of juice. So it's pretty good. Anyway, on to the stigmata now. One thing to preface about these stigmata is that the bottom one is a must-have if you want the other ones to work, or if you want the set bonuses to work, because of this buff right here. The triple X is a buff. The name is just apparently not there, or maybe it's just a filler name, I'm not exactly sure. But it's like a Slaug, where you do need bottom for anything to work. So bear that in mind. So starting from the top, in Herrscher form, ice damage plus 50%. All team members in this buff mode gain plus 20% total damage. Quite good, quite straightforward. Mid, when equipped on a Bronyo character, all enemies take 30% bonus total damage from the host's range attacks. Host gains total 20% damage resistance. Quite good, quite straightforward again. Really straightforward. And then the bottom one, host gains total damage plus 10%. And then after using a weapon active, the host gains this effect. The effect is not stackable for 18 seconds. The Valk with this effect this effect status, gain all elemental damage plus 34%, and then when the Valk with this effect exits the field, transfer the status to the Valkyrie switching in. So essentially, after you use your weapon active with Bronya, of Herrscher of Truth Bronya, once you use the weapon active, you have this buff for 18 seconds no matter which character you switch to, which is quite good. And then specific things take effect at certain times. So if it's not the active character, then you're going to have other ones like this one take effect, and so on and so forth. And so it just switches to the active Valkyrie for 18 seconds. Obviously, you get 34% here, which is quite juicy. And then the 2 cent, when Valkyrie has this effect, Stigma host gains 12% total percent damage. This is only really going to affect the bunny, I believe, because when Valk has this effect, I guess it also affects if she's the active, but this is also just going to affect the bunny if she's off field, which is quite nice. And when other team members have the effect, weapon active refresh the duration. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you gain this effect on one character by using it, let's say on Herrscher of Truth, and you switch to another character, the weapon active of that other character will refresh the duration. At least that's what I interpreted from this, is that the weapon active of other characters will refresh this thing's duration. Which, to be quite frank with you, kind of fucking crack to be able to refresh this buff pretty indefinitely, seeing as there are a few characters out there that I can imagine you can infinitely cycle this buff and never lose it throughout the whole fight. Anyway, when host is in Herrscher form, when combo attack hits an enemy, upgrade this buff. with to all enemies take 18% total damage for 18 seconds. And then when the buff ends, so does the enemy buff. Now, you don't necessarily actually upgrade this buff. I feel like Marissa used this word just very loosely here. I think what it means is there's just an additional effect to it. Because what the buff is all elemental damage plus 34%. That's what the actual buff is. And the extra effect to it is the enemies take 18% bonus total damage for 18 seconds, which is still very fucking cranked. So, very, very good. And then the 3-set bonus, host, combo attack, and ultimate and burst mode gain ice damage plus 20%. If any Valkyrie in the team has this effect, all enemies on the field take 16% bonus all elemental damage. Also quite juiced out. Now, to be quite frank with you, the 3-set is not as strong as the 2-set. The 2-set is definitely the sweet spot for this character, but the 3-set is incredibly strong as well. The 3-set one, though, mainly it's for the host, but it does have a bit of full team buffing. So if you're going for a support Bronya, it's probably advised to go for just 2-set. If you're like on a free-to-play budget build, 2-set is probably going to be the sweet spot for you if you're using her as a support. But if you're using her as a main DPS, 3-set is definitely going to be the go-to. Now, this character is absolutely juiced out of their mind. This is probably the most versatile character in the game. Now, that is pretty much the end of everything that I've written. This is all, again, from Marissa's video. I'll link it down in the description just in case you guys want the actual information from the game itself. I wrote this up in my own time just so I can read it a lot clearer. And so go down to his video if you want a lot more clarity from the actual game itself. Herrscher of Truth Bronya is probably going to be the most cracked character in the game for a fair while, purely because they are everything. They are an ice DPS, they are a lightning support, as well as a fire support in every regards of the word's definition and the meaning. They specifically, I'm talking if you have everything about the character. Let's say you don't have the stigma or the weapon, the character is still a very good support as well as a main DPS for all the elements that I've just mentioned. A very good ice DPS as well as a very good fire and lightning support. But the weapon and the stigmas extrapolate that exponentially. Now, let's talk about her main DPS. As I said before, because of her, where was it here? Her being essentially Herrscher form in truth mode and armored mode, which is essentially, they could have just said she is always in Herrscher form. That's essentially, they're saying the same thing here. She's always in Herrscher form. Listen, you can pop any Herrscher mode artifacts, or sorry, not artifacts, that's the Genshin in me coming out, I'm so sorry. You can chuck on any Herrscher mode stigmas on her that are ice damage or even universal, and you'll probably have an absolute good time on her. She seems to be very, very universal with her stigmas, in my honest opinion. Obviously, her signature ones are going to be the best, but listen, you could probably chuck on Herrscher Human Egos one, and you'll be just fine. So, that's that. The weapon, I'm not too versatile with the weapons here, but the weapon seems pretty caked out for this character, specifically for main DPSing, seeing as you equip this with 2 other Ice Valks and you get 40% total self-ice damage, which is pretty juicy-goosey. And that's pretty much everything with this character. I myself am not rolling on this character because I'm not too interested in the character, but I will say this for certain, that this is going to be the most universal character and probably the character with the most longevity that the game has released in a fair while. I don't know many characters that have this much longevity or this much longevity potential. She pretty much can do everything in the game at a very high level. So if you want a character that can do those things, by all means, a very good character to invest. But if you're looking for other things, like maybe something more badass or something, something else, maybe it's just not up your alley, then by all means, this is a pretty okay skip in my opinion. But it is what it is. You guys roll on whatever you want, I'll roll on whenever I want, and hope this video helped you. Now, I probably will continue doing this and using other outlets of information to solidify the sources of information that or the numbers that I'm getting. But hopefully this video helped explain how a character will fundamentally work in a, in just a way. Because I also like doing these kind of videos for my Genshin characters. I do these for Genshin characters very, very early on in their kind of announcement or early leak stages. And I like to do this for Honkai as well because I like the Honkai characters and what Honkai does. So I'll probably continue to do this for the future characters. So if you did enjoy, and if this was helpful, consider liking and subscribing to the channel because it's a fun time here. Thank you so much, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.